What is up, everybody? It's your boys here at Fantasy First Rounders Live, back for another episode. I got real Ryan Hicks over here with me at FFR Tom. Let's get this started.
It's 5:30 a.m. Let's be the kid.
What's up, guys? Like we said, another episode here of the Fantasy First Rounders Live. Of course, real Ryan Hicks over here, a little different location today, traveling a bit. On his way up and towards my neck of the woods, coming to New Jersey, right, Ryan?
Yep, heading to New Jersey tomorrow morning. Yeah, I'm in San Antonio this evening, so at my brother's house. Yeah, I'm excited.
Good news is
early morning.
You're headed right into the region we're talking about today. Today, it's all about the AFC and NFC East. So before we jump into that real quick, as always, we got to talk a little bit about the St. Jude Bowl, what we got going in there. Drafts are starting. We're rolling with the St. Jude Bowl.
Yes, draft started on Thursday. We figured in honor of the Hall of Fame game, a lot of people were getting antsy to draft, so we just started some divisions that we would fill up and start. So right now it's when you join, when you're ready to draft, you let me know and one of us know, and we will get you in the next available drafting. We got slow drafts going. We got fast drafts going. So whatever it is you're interested in, we're covering it in the St. Jude Bowl. Come join, guys. Want to see how much we can get to St. Jude this year. We also have other formats involved, like guillotine, etc. But honestly, let's just get in this big bowl and see how big we can do it. Come join us. It's the best league that I'm in every year, so y'all really should come join.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about this. Obviously, I'm involved in it, so I'm a little biased. But, I mean, the more people that join, the bigger the pot is, right? Last year, $1,200 to the winner, $1,200 to St. Jude's. We're pretty well on track to break through that. And, hey, if every person that joins is an extra $10 to each, right? So very excited to see what comes from that. Obviously, tonight, our boys, Chris Pinto and Billy Witt, are not with us. That's okay. Hoping that they're all good. Billy feeling a little under the weather. So, Billy, get well soon, buddy. But we'll jump right into it here with our first team of the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. Now, Ryan, I don't know about you, but this is an exciting team for me. It's one that we talked a little bit about early last year, had a lot of hopes for it. Josh Allen obviously, seemed like he had some upward trending going into last season, and that came to fruition. The team's only gotten better. Josh Allen only gotten better with his big contract extension. You got Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, of course. And in the backfield, that's kind of the bigger question I think we're going to end up talking about is Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and adding in Matt Breida. So what are your thoughts on this team going into 2021?
Goodness me. This is a team that I also want a lot of. I think me and you were really, really high on Allen compared to the other two guys, so we might get a little out of control here. But I've got Allen for 49 for 630 for 5,001 passing yards, 41 touchdowns through the air, and 10 interceptions. 105 rushes for 430 yards and 11 TDs on the ground. They didn't add that running back like we were thinking, the Aaron Jones, somebody like that. I don't think there's a big threat in this running back room for Josh Allen to not get double-digit touchdowns this year. He is my QB1 with those numbers. Obviously, if he hits those numbers, he's going to be QB1. But moving into – there's nothing here I like. I will take a little Mitch Trubisky if I have Allen in a league where I need a quarterback because, if Allen gets banged up, say he misses 2 games, you can plug Trubisky in there. This guy has proven to be fantasy relevant in his career, especially on leagues that don't really worry about turnovers, and he has better weapons than he's ever worked with in his career here as well. So Trubisky as a backup in case Allen goes down temporarily is a good decision in my opinion. Then we move to the running backs, man. I don't know if you're a Singletary or a Moss guy. I'm not really either. I have Singletary slightly leading the backfield in touches. He gets a little bit bigger boost for his targets and catches that I'm projecting. I got him for 55 targets, 43 catches. That kind of gives him a bump, but I got them each at 115 for Singletary, 110 rushes for Moss, 3 touchdowns each. Like nothing here is exciting. This is only depth back. I don't even want them in my flex. Do you have a guy here that you like really are into in this backfield?
I can't say that there's one I like better than the other. I think you're definitely right where Singletary has the edge on touches. But the issue at the end of the day when it comes to points scored in fantasy is going to be touchdowns. Because I do believe Zach Moss is going to take the majority of the goal line touches. And even those, you have Josh Allen. So it's kind of a split. Who's going to get those rushing touchdowns in the short yardage scenarios? Neither of these guys have shown me a clear ability to be the number one back. And I will say, I think all but maybe one league of the 3 or 4 I have either of them in, I have both. Out of those 3 or 4, 3 of them, I have both. So it's I don't hate that as the opportunity if you have the ability to get both because they both go fairly low in the draft. They're not – everyone knows the question marks with them, so it's not absurd to get them both kind of those mid-rounds.
And honestly, like if one of them does go down, then the other one then intrigues me. So I'm with you. If I can get both later as like a depth RB flex type of a situation, because again, if one of them does go down, I instantly like the value on the other just because of the volume that they're likely to see. You could even see streaming Breida in like a flex position. If say Singletary misses 2 weeks, I think Breida becomes viable just because he might get a touchdown with the minimal touches, and he is the biggest of those backs. So that's the only reason I lean there for the goal line vulturing that may be done. Receiving, wow, this receiving group to me is very good. Obviously, you have Diggs. I've got Diggs going for 171 targets, 128 catches, 1499 and 11. So Diggs is my wide receiver 3, which, man, you look at those numbers, it's crazy. You think he's wide receiver 3 with those numbers, but again, you're splitting hairs with those top guys. But you look at what he did last year, and then you move down. So who's the wide receiver 2? Who's the wide receiver 2? Who do you think it is, Tom?
Personally, I think it's going to be Gabriel Davis. I think he looked very good last year. I think that he's gone a long way, even from start of last year to the end of last year. And somebody that's way down on the depth chart, but I actually don't dislike, is Isaiah McKenzie. I'm showing him on the kind of the third row of the receivers on most of the depth charts I look at, but I think he has the potential to be kind of that wide receiver 4 or 5. Obviously, he brought in Emmanuel Sanders as well. But I think he has a lot of upside for them. And in a super deep league, a 14 or 16 team league where you have a deep bench, it's somebody that I might stash or maybe stick onto a taxi squad if you can.
Yeah, I think it's Gabriel Davis as well. I got him for 101 looks, 65 catches, 968 yards, and 9 TDs. So obviously, I'm going to be higher on Gabriel Davis than just about anybody else that I've seen out there. But I know that Pinto and Billy also like this guy. And like you said, you thought he was the wide receiver too. So I know that my projections are a little bit higher than what likely anybody else has. But this offense is going to be humming, and they're not going to be doing a ton of running the ball. Why would they when they have this kind of quarterback that can do this? And then you have Beasley. I got him for 99 targets. I mean, there's going to be a lot of targets around this offense. 69 catches, 732 and 4. So you're looking at a viable flex option. If you catch him on one of those weeks, he scores a touchdown. That's a wide receiver option. Sanders, I just got him for 64 for 43. I don't really think that he's going to be better than Gabriel Davis. And unless he is, I don't think he's a more effective slot receiver than Cole Beasley. So I see him seeing the field more in 4 receiver sets. or coming in to spell guys that had big gains, perhaps. Because he can play every position on the field. So that's why I think he still maintains viability, because he can come in, play the slot, play whatever position they need him. I do like McKenzie. I don't have him for a ton of shares, but I do have him for a few rushes and a touchdown on the ground. But that being said, I like him more as a dynasty option. If Beasley and Sanders retire at the end of the year, McKenzie is going to be jacked up my board next year. There's not really another option that I'm even going to consider in the receiving room. However, a guy that I am a truther on, tight end room, Dawson Knox. I have him 81 targets, 56 catches, 722 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That would make Knox, if I look at my tight ends, my tight end 10. So this is a guy that I'm scooping up all over the place. I think he's crazy value for where he goes in drafts. This is the starting tight end for this offense with Josh Allen, who just went bonkers and was the QB1. Once again, you've seen what the receivers are going to do. How are they going to cover him? I like Knox. I also think that Hollister could be a streaming option at tight end. If Knox goes down, he becomes more than that. But otherwise, this offense is going to be flying around. I want pieces of it. Give me more of Davis and Knox, but really, I mean, obviously Diggs. That goes without saying. Give me all those guys.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. With McKenzie, you brought up having him in Dynasty. That's a guy, if anybody goes down on the field, I think could see a lot of time. So Dynasty leagues, or even if he's on waivers, just keep an eye on him. Make sure he's on your watch list. Know if he's going to be in, because you want to pick him up as soon as somebody were to go down. Dawson Knox, I like the upside a lot. The only concern I have with Dawson Knox is when I look at his last 2 seasons, his catch percentage is pretty low, 56% his rookie year and 54.5% last year. So, about 55% split between the two. It's not ideal. If you can improve that, which, hey, if he can improve it, anything like Josh Allen improved his accuracy, that goes a long way.
Yes, sir.
And as far as the ability for these guys to put up points, Josh Allen's yards per game last year at 284, extrapolated out over 17 games, is good for about 4,800 yards. He only needs to add an extra 10 yards a game to it to break the 5,000 mark. It's very doable for this offense. Yep.
And if he gets double-digit, if they get Tony, Jesse, and Lake, hello. Miles, yes, I have Knox in all of my dynasty leagues. I don't think you can wait for this guy to get on the waivers. I think the first game he's going to score a touchdown and everybody's going to soup him up. I think you got to get him before that. Again, look at this offense. We know what this offense is. Dawson Knox is a guy that I'm targeting in all of my dynasties. He's already on my team. And in redrafts, he's my tight end 2/3, depending on how many tight ends you need or if it's tight end premium. But Knox is a guy that winds up on he's probably my highest owned tight end, him or Dusecki. So is that bringing us to our next team?
I think so, which is another exciting one. Maybe not as much to me. I know I'm not as in on them as some other people, but the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa leading the charge for them. Backfield, Myles Gaskin, Malcolm Brown. I don't know how I feel about either of them. Wide receiver, definitely a lot more full than it was last year, though. Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Jakeem Grant, Jalen Waddle, obviously the big rookie pickup for him, and Albert Wilson. And something that a lot of people probably don't even note, they did pick up Liam Eichenberg, left guard. He's the starting left guard on their depth charts currently. That could be a big addition because that offensive line last year did struggle a bit. So protecting Tua, probably not the worst thing you could do. And obviously, I can't talk about them without bringing up Mike Gesicki, your guy. I know you're going to talk about him, as well as rookie Hunter Long. So definitely a lot of weapons on the team. You guys know, or everybody that watches the show knows, I'm not a Tua guy. So Ryan, what do you have for the Dolphins?
Look, I'm not a Tua guy per se either, but Pinto has me convinced that this is a guy that I will have some shares of because the potential's there. Again, improved line, more versatile weapons this year. Year 2, last year was COVID training camp. He didn't get a lot. He was coming off the injury. That being said, in my projections, I project him playing 13 games. I have Brissett starting some games because Tua has that injury history. So bear in mind when you hear the projections that this is for a 13-game slate because I do think I like some of Tua. I see him at 297 for 435, 37, 87. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I think they're going to be effective in all aspects, so he's not going to have to force throws, and they're not going to turn the ball over. Rushing minimal, 41 for 119, but 3 touchdowns on the ground. I do see him sneaking some of them goal line looks away. Again, Brissett, I don't see him being viable in the weeks that I'm projecting Tua to be down. I'd be more into Myles Gaskin on those weeks. Speaking of Myles Gaskin, we'll move to the running back room. Myles Gaskin's the guy. Like he is, I got him at 226 carries. We love that kind of volume. 968, 7 touchdowns, plus 58 targets, 45 catches for 348, and another touchdowns through the air. This guy showed what he could do last year in a semi-limited span, although not as limited as I'm comfortable with the size of what we saw last year. The Dolphins seem to be too. They brought in Malcolm Brown. That is not a starting running back. That is a guy to spell the starting running back. They also have Salvin Ahmed. Ahmed, I don't remember how you say his name. Excuse me. I know how you spell it. But I have him actually out-touching Brown on the ground and even through the air. I liked what I saw from him as far as a reserve running back goes, but this is Gaskin's show. You also have rookie Dokes, who I just don't see him getting the touches necessary. That being said, one guy goes down and this guy instantly gets touches because I do see them kind of using all 3 of those backs, with Gaskin being the 60% of the touches guy. 226 is, that's going to be a hefty workload. Plus the passing. I do like Myles Gaskin a lot in redraft. I'm not going to be touching him as much in Dynasty because I can see Miami addressing running back next year. Could you as well? Unless he just goes bonkers, which those numbers to me are good, not great. Same for Tua. Good enough to get another chance next year, but not great. If he stays healthy and he keeps that pace up, maybe now you're looking at, okay, we found our guy moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, my biggest question is it Tua? Because obviously we saw a lack of the ball moving under Tua Tagovailoa last year. Or is it the scheme, right? Because, we did see Ryan Fitzpatrick in there. We also saw Tua, and it was back and forth in the middle of games. So is this an issue with Brian Flores down there? When I do look at the numbers, as far as yards per attempt, Ryan Fitzpatrick was at about 7.8 yards per attempt, where Tua was at 6.3. So I don't know if were you actively calling plays there on shorter routes, just kind of the offense wasn't moving the ball as efficiently, or what was the issue here, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a limiting factor for a lot of the team. If you're able to open it up, it opens it up for everybody. Gaskin, we saw flashes of it where if he has another season where there's flashes, we could see something like what Jacksonville at least says they're doing, where Travis Etienne isn't coming in to take the place of James Robinson, but they're kind of a 1-2 punch, right? We'll see how it happens, but I could see them bringing in somebody to supplement him and possibly take over if he can't really take that next step. And I think the same thing with Tua. There was a lot of talk about this offseason. Would they get rid of Tua? There was a lot of trade talk around Watson for Tua. I wouldn't put it past that happening next year, but I will say if going into next year he hasn't showed off, you're not trading him. You're not getting that value that you would have going into this season. With that, though, what do you think of these receivers? Obviously, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, who I believe is serving a few games on suspension, but some good names there. Obviously, to a limiting factor. What do you have them projected for, though?
And so I think that Waddle instantly becomes the wide receiver 1 just based on talent alone, but I still like Parker. I also want to say that I projected some injuries in the receiving core as well. I got Waddle at 14, and I'm feeling less confident daily about that. I got Parker at 13. Will Fuller, I got at 7. He's got the 1-game suspension, but the only year he stayed healthy, he got popped for PEDs. So to me, I don't see him staying healthy. Lynn Bowden, a guy that I really kind of do like because of his versatility, I have him staying relatively healthy. But then you got Preston Williams, who's another guy I like on this unit, but I got him at 10 because he's shown injury history as well. So there's a lot of guys in this. There will be streaming options available here based on whatever injury is this week. As far as Waddle goes, though, again, I got him as the guy that I think 90 targets, 59 catches, 921. I'm expecting a crazy high yards per catch and 7 touchdowns. On the other side, Parker in 1 less game, 96 targets. I do see him leading the team in targets still. 62 catches, 782, and 7 touchdowns. So these are guys that, I want exposure to. And if they're both healthy the whole season, those numbers look a little bit better. You just got to hope for it. Fuller, 7 games. I do have him at 10 targets a game, though, 70 targets, 46 for 673 and 5. This is the guy I want if he can somehow maintain his health, because his per-game numbers throughout his career have been spectacular. Now, Bowden's another guy that I'm intrigued by because I have him at 15 rushes for 83 and a touchdown. But through the air, if all of these guys are healthy, he's not going to be a viable option. I mean, it doesn't even bear saying the projections. These are not guys I'm going to have on my team pretty much all the way through after this, except for those injury type situations when they can come in and be that wide receiver 2-3. Then there's value in this offense because I do see it being a balanced offense. But my favorite position is coming up. Tight end,
real quick
Mike
on the receivers. Real quick on the receivers, though. I will say this is a team that beyond those first few guys, and we'll include Albert Wilson in it because I think that he's kind of your 4, and I guess Jakeem Grant is your 5 probably. But I don't know if guys start going down left and right. I have no idea. Is it Mac Hollins? Is it Alan Hearns? Is it Lynn Bowden? Isaiah Ford? I mean, I'm not sure which of these guys you're going to want if those injuries started to come up, because there's no clear-cut ranking for these guys. The depth charts exist, but I don't know how much it really means. But tight end,
probably find out 1 week too late.
Exactly.
Yeah, you find out which guy you wanted 1 week too late.
And then it's too late
Tight
because
end.
he's on the bench again because somebody's back.
Yep. Somebody else took the shot on him.
Yep.
Tight end, though, man. Yes, let's get into it. My boy, Mike Gesicki. So this guy is a guy that, I was a truther on last year. He had a relatively solid year, but I did not like what I saw from Tua last year, so I'm expecting better this year, which is why I got him at 95 targets, just 1 less, second on the team, 1 less than Parker. 61 catches, 821 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's a pretty solid year. No, not pretty solid. That's an excellent year for a tight end. Good enough for my tight end 7, which he was again last year. So this is not a stretch so far, as I do think this is going to be a better year for some of those high-level tight ends. So my a little less exposure to Gesicki than last year because I do have some exposure to Pitts. Can't help myself. I know Pinto's not a big fan of that, but I just can't help it with that rookie. He's incredible. The rest of the tight ends I'm ignoring unless Gesicki goes down, and even if he does, good luck finding out if they're going to be using Hunter Long, the rookie that they've got, like you said, or Durham Smythe or Adam Shaheen. Which one of those guys is the guy? I don't know. I just know Gesicki is the guy, and I'm not really touching anything else here. If he goes down, then I don't even think any of those guys have that same kind of upside anyways. And if not in this offense, not with the receiving options that are there.
Yeah, I definitely get it with Gesicki, and we've talked about how it doesn't take a lot to make a tight end 1, right? To get into that top 12 is really a 500 or 600 yard season, and about a touchdown every 2 games or so, and you're pretty much locked in as a tight end 1. So the one concern I do have with Gesicki is how, I don't know if this is the right word, but how deep that wide receiver room is. There are quite a few options that they like, I think. I know a lot of last year he was running out of the slot. How much do we see that this year, especially with the additions of Jalen Waddle and Will Fuller?
Yeah, I just think that he's too talented no matter where he is. If he's an inline tight end, then he might end up with a middle linebacker covering him, and that's likely not good news for that middle linebacker. I just think that wherever he goes, he's going to be a problem based on his side speed combo. So if they put more speed on the field, that means a slower guy will be covering Gesicki, and that's a good thing. And they have so much speed, honestly. When they got Waddle and Fuller on the field at the same time, even any one of those Wilson, Grant, any one of those little speedsters, good luck. They're going to have to put a linebacker on Gesicki, and that is really not what you want to see if you're a defensive coordinator. It
is definitely a fast team. Going to be scary to see unless he has an Isaiah Simmons or Micah Parsons covering him that's in the 4.3, 4.4 range. He's going to burn them.
Those guys exist, but there's not many of them. Right, exactly.
Not enough of them. So, right. But that'll move us into the next team here, which has a quarterback battle. I don't know if I would call it that. I think it's pretty clear cut who should be the starting quarterback at the end of the day. But
Gardner Minshew.
The New England Patriots. Gardner Minshew should always be the starting quarterback of any team.
Yep.
So, hey, I think that Gardner Minshew would be a welcome addition to this Patriots team. Obviously, Cam Newton is there right now with And then he's competing with number 50, Mac Jones. It's a weird Bill Belichick thing for the rookie to wear number 50 and earn his number. Hey, whatever they did worked for a while, so I won't bash it. But this team around them is kind of odd, right? Running back room is a little full. Damian Harris,
Yes.
Sony Michel, James White. You don't really know which one. And you added Ramondre Stevenson as well. Kind of a weird situation. And then receivers aren't great, but aren't the worst in the league, I would say. Definitely not anywhere near the best, but it's Nelson Aguilar, who had a second coming in Las Vegas. Jacoby Myers, N'Keal Harry, added Kendrick Bourne out of San Francisco. Matthew Slater, probably one of the best gunners in the league. And then the tight end position. Obviously, last season brought in 2 guys in the 3rd round, Devin Asiasi and I forget which one it was aside from him, but brought in somebody else.
Dalton King.
There you go. Thank you. He's not even with the team anymore, I don't think. But now you add in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry in the offseason. Clearly, you didn't think that those 3rd rounders worked out. It wasn't quite your, Rob Gronkowski and Hernandez 2.0. Might be a good thing there. But
yeah, agreed.
But I mean, can we agree which quarterback should be starting week 1 realistically?
Yeah, it should be Mac Jones, honestly.
Cam Newton's
really
not
should
the
be.
guy.
No way, man. If Cam can show he's a pro and mentor this rookie, that's the optimal way to go, obviously. I think you and I agree here. I got Cam starting 11 games and Mac Jones starting 7. The only reason being is because I think Belichick's offense is probably not going to be that easy for Mac Jones to pick up. Honestly, like, why rush him into a situation? Set him up for success. So maybe unless Cam really starts winning a lot, I don't see him going much past that. And now that I see 11 and 7, part of me wonders if it should be flipped and I should have 11 for Mac Jones and 7 for Cam Newton. But let me just say this. I'm not touching either one of these guys. I do have interest in Mac Jones for when he starts. He's going to be a little more fantasy relevant to me. And then obviously Cam has some rushing upside, so he's not wasting a roster spot while he's starting. Man, I don't really – there's no way he makes it through the year, right? There's no way. So you'd have to get Mac Jones. Now you're wasting a lot of capital on a quarterback that I really don't appreciate wasting. To get what would you call a moderately good guy for your super flex position, you better not be starting these guys. It's not what you want. Stidham's still there. I don't care. I don't know anybody else does. It's the running back room that if you can solve this puzzle, this is what you're going to be looking to find out what's going on here. So Damian Harris, Sony Michel seem to me to be the best choices to lead the running back room as far as who gets the most carries. I don't see any of these guys getting over 50% of the carries, and that's the problem I have with this whole backfield. But if you can find the lead dog, which I'm projecting to be Michel, but I also am projecting Michel to be injured. You just look at his draft pedigree. You look at what he has done. He's been effective, not special, but effective. Harris showed some flashes, so I have Michel at 180 rushes and Harris at 160. Michel a couple more touchdowns and almost 200 more yards. But it's James White in PPR leagues that you really still want to look at. They just brought him back. 65 targets, 48 catches for 413 and 3. That right there, along with a minimal rushing game, can make him a viable flex option in any PPR format just because the guy has proven time and again that he gets those catches. Now, you're not drafting him as like an RB1, RB2, but you're drafting him knowing on a bye week for your running backs or emergency situation flex, you can get this guy because of his targets. I still like to get James White late in drafts just because I know there's kind of a floor there for him in a way that not a lot of guys his level have. He has a little bit of a floor as far as the catching ability that he possesses. Like, which guy do you like the best in this backfield, Tom?
That's a loaded question, right? I love the upside of Sony Michel. I think he's a very talented guy, but we haven't seen him really break through. 3 years in the league here, they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. His attempts per game went down from 15, 16 his first year to 8 last year, albeit only playing 9 games. But when he was in, they weren't giving him the ball. And then, you even extend past that, his rushing yards per attempt, again, you're on a much lower scale for last year at 5.7 yards per attempt. but prior to that, it was 3.7 the year before and 4.5 his rookie year. Those aren't fantastic numbers. And like I said, last year, I really hesitate to account for that. So I'm not sure what to think of it. I think that the fact that you have two other running backs back there, specifically James White in PPR leagues, that's going to steal a pretty significant amount of shares out of the backfield passing, I don't know that I want to get in on any of them. If I was really forced to, PPR, it's going to be James White. If it's a non-PPR league, you're really going to twist my arm, it's going to be Sony Michel. But none of that's against Damian Harris. I think he's a fine running back. It's just a weird situation.
Yes,
I think there's just too many
honestly,
mouths.
I think if Michelle goes down, which he has proven to do, I really like Damian Harris. He is a guy that I have targeted some in drafts just because he showed some flashes last year. I think we all saw that we were like, whoa, this guy might be better than we expected. I can't tell how good he's going to be. A lot of that same thing you can talk about with the receiving room, man. Like I got Aguilar as their number one. I think, would you agree that Aguilar is likely going to lead him in targets?
Probably. I mean, unless Jacoby Myers has some big breakout season, which I don't necessarily anticipate, I think it's going to be Aguilar, and I think that you're actually going to see the tight ends lead in targets, but out of the receivers, yes, it's Aguilar. I'll put it that way.
I got Aguilar with even one more than the next tight end. I got him at 82 targets, 49 catches, 609 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which to me is a pretty serviceable wide receiver depth option. Those numbers could go much higher if it's Mac Jones more of the season. I got Kendrick Bourne as actually the second best fantasy receiver, but Jacoby Myers is second in targets. I got Myers at 56 for 38, 459 and a score. And I got Bourne for 52 for 34 for 441 and 2 scores. So that other touchdown puts him slightly above. I had N'Keal Harry at 35, 16, 156 and 1, but I'm not excited about anybody outside of Aguilar and then maybe a Bourne and Myers, depending on which one of those guys kind of emerges as the wide receiver 2. They will have some value, especially, like I said, once Mac Jones becomes a starter, you could even get some value from the wide receiver 3 here, but you really can't ignore what I know we're going to be talking about after this, the tight ends and what they're going to be demanding as far as the target share goes.
Yeah, it's, again, a weird situation, and I think that in this sense, compared to the running back room has a couple pretty talented guys. And not to say that these guys aren't talented. Obviously, they're NFL players. They're good at what they do. But, comparing to the rest of the league,
they're all 2s and 3s.
I don't think anybody –
they're 2s and 3s.
Exactly. They don't have a number one. I wouldn't put it past this to be a team that maybe tries to make a trade later in the season. Pick up some receiver that can actually make a difference. I know somebody that we've obviously heard trade rumors around in the last few days. I don't know how true any of it is or how realistic it would be, but an interesting landing spot if Mac Jones is the starter would be Michael Thomas. A guy like that could make a huge difference with this team with a good offensive line, good enough running backfield. It would propel the offense along. I think that they could stutter a little bit as it sits just because nobody's able to kind of be that monster, that number one guy on the team. Even these tight ends, they're not that great that they're going to overwhelm defenses, I don't think.
Man, they are good, though. I do see this as a reenactment of the Gronk Hernandez from the day. They got two, what we would – okay, so if Johnny Smith is still in Tennessee, you got – and Hunter Henry is either here alone or he's back in L.A. You got 2 tight end ones, right? 2 top 12s
I wish he was back
sitting
in
on
LA.
the roster here. Yeah. Well, I like this, especially if it's Mac Jones, because, again, what I love the most about Mac Jones is his pinpoint accuracy. Those tight ends are going to get open. Unless you start to see teams DBs start covering the tight ends, which again, that's a big size differentiation. But Johnny Smith can burn, and Hunter Henry's a red zone nightmare with his size. I know Henry's down a little bit, and I have not adjusted my rankings accordingly, my projections, excuse me. And I will give Johnny Smith a slight boost because of this, especially early season stuff. So if you're in guillotines, I like Johnny Smith late. And I also have Johnny Smith with a little rushing upside as well. They may get him involved in the run game. That is something that he's shown he's capable of doing. He does have a great burst to him. But I got him at 81 targets, 50 catches for 616 and 5. To me, he's more of the bursty big guy. I got Henry for 78 targets, so 3 less, 51 catches, 1 more, 594 yards, which is 22 yards less. I don't see him as the same yards per catch, but 6 touchdowns. That extra touchdown will put him right behind Johnny Smith. Excuse me. They're literally back to back in my rankings. I have Smith slightly above because, again, I think he has the higher yards per catch. He's the more explosive athlete of the two. But Henry should lead the unit in touchdowns. And both of these guys are viable if you were punting tight end, which I oftentimes recommend doing unless you can get one of those guys or are really a Kyle Pitts believer. Punting tight end is quite easy, in my opinion, because you can get 1 or 2 of these guys. What if you could get a Smith-Henry combo? Because I'm telling you right now, if either one of those guys goes down, holy mama, you have a guaranteed instant top 5 tight end every week from then moving forward. I don't think these guys hurt each other too much, but they absolutely do cap each other's upside.
I will say I think that you have a better chance of them being higher ranked with Cam Newton as the quarterback. I think that's an unpopular opinion, but
I understand why you say that. That my only disagreement is Cam is going to have a hard time hitting people even that big, but Mac Jones is going to be
it's true.
dinking and dunking and dicing.
He's not going to hit them well.
So, yeah, like you're going to see more of like the Aguilar taking the top off the defense, and it's going to be the tight ends working under the middle. I could see how that could be good with the Mac Jones.
He doesn't have the arm to launch it deep, right?
So the defenses aren't going to be threatened by it.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to be tough, right? Where the benefit of having 2 of these guys comes in. If you have Cam in there, you have 2 very good tight ends. I won't put them in the elite category by any means, but I don't think they're very good.
Right. Very good.
Very good tight ends, though. Having 2 of them benefits you because it's going to be tough for teams to cover that, as well as running backs and receivers that are at least 2 or 3s on any other team. So, and we know Cam does like the tight end. We've seen that since his days back with Greg Olsen back in Carolina, right? So definitely not a terrible scenario for these tight ends if he was the starter. But that, I think, takes us to a team that has a lack of quarterback experience, if I've ever seen it. Not a single quarterback has ever thrown an NFL pass in a game. And that's the New York Jets. Probably the one that I have the most excitement for in this entire division, actually. Right there with the Bills at worst. But looking at this team, obviously Zach Wilson, big name coming out of BYU, right? Running back room is a little ugly right now. When you look at depth charts, it's going to show Tevin Coleman, LaMichael Pirine, I don't know, and Ty Johnson. But the guy that nobody's talking about is Michael Carter out of UNC. I think it's the clear-cut starter come day one, and I think he's going to be a talented guy for him, right? A 1-2 punch with a guy like Tevin Coleman. Tight end, Christopher Herndon, athletic, reminds me a little bit of Evan Ingram, knock him down a little notch, but has the ability. He hasn't shown it, though I know we didn't like the coach that was in New York for a while. And then the receiver room is where it gets really interesting. Oh, yeah, I didn't even want to say his name. He who must not be named. But the receiver room is what really excites me. Bringing in Corey Davis from Tennessee, Keelan Cole from Jacksonville, Jamison Crowder from Washington, Braxton Berrios, Elijah Moore, and Denzel Mims. That's your top 6. That's a pretty good wide receiver room if I've ever seen one. What are your thoughts on Zach Wilson and their running back group? We'll start with those 2.
I think Zach Wilson's going to have a good year. Again, there is no Adam Gase. We'll just spell it. That's a problem for him if he's there. I do expect Wilson to miss 2 games. I've got 2. I'm projecting for 15. 339 for 507, 38-19, 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, plus 61 for 192 and 4 on the ground. He does have an element of a run game, even though it's not super impressive. This guy, and to me in Dynasty, is a guy I'm really after because I think the Jets are on a different page now that they're out of the Gase era. They can start moving in a different direction, and I love some of the young talent we're going to be talking about here, which moves me to the running back room where Michael Carter is clearly the best running back on that team. It's not even close, in my opinion, what we're talking about here, talent discrepancy. As a rookie, I have him for 180 carries for 768 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. But here's where it gets beautiful. 63 targets, 46 catches, 359, and another 3 through the air. This guy is going to be a viable fantasy player year one immediately. The other guys, I'm really legitimately ignoring. I don't want anything to do with them because I don't think the Jets are going to be ahead and running the ball. I think they're going to be behind, which definitely leans into Michael Carter's favor. He's the best receiving back of this group by far. I think he's the best running back of this group by far. But I am all about Michael Carter, especially late where we're getting him. Again, I don't project RB1 numbers for him. You just saw what I project. But those are solid, really low-end RB2, excellent flex level options, a guy that I really would like for my bye weeks because you can plug him and he could have a big old week for you. But I see a floor there with his pass catching upside.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to move right to running back because quarterback, it's Zach Wilson. He's the guy. He's athletic. He has an arm. He has all the things you want in a quarterback, right?
Yeah,
This running back room, though, with Michael Carter, I can't say enough good things about him. I don't really understand why it took so long for him to get drafted. You know, you look at the last couple of years, really the last two. So size is definitely a question, right? But looking at the last 2 seasons at North Carolina, he was sharing the backfield with Javonte Williams. He matched him almost identically for receiving capabilities, right? Yardage and yards per reception was pretty much even. Rushing, Javonte Williams, 2019, 933 yards and 5 touchdowns, 5.6 per carry. Michael Carter, 1,003 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 5.7 per carry. 2020, Javonte Williams, 1,140 yards, 7.3 per carry, and 19 touchdowns. Michael Carter, 1,245 rushing yards, 8 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns. I mean, you're talking about a guy that pretty much matched the guy that was in the backfield with him 1-for-1, right? It's not identical. Obviously, Williams got more touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah, but Carter had better efficiency numbers.
Exactly. He was more efficient. Yeah. This is a guy that you could really – he might not be Javonte Williams because of his size. I get it. He's small. He's 5'8", 201. But guess what? One of the best running backs that I can think of in the last 10 years – out of a PPR league is Darren Sproles, and he was tiny. He was realistically 5'6", right? I think he was listed at 5'8", but I think he was actually about 5'6". Like there's plenty of guys that you can make a name for yourself as a small running back with those abilities. I think with this offense, you can get creative enough that you can give him a place to shine. So, and like I said, Tevin Coleman is not a bad second option for them to be able to punch the ball in. He's going to vulture some touchdowns, absolutely. So it's not a terrible streaming option, but Michael Carter is going to be the starting running back on the Jets.
Yeah, I'm looking at my running back list now. I have him 2 below CEH, 20 points less than CEH. I see them very similarly played, like they're very similar players. I also have him 2 above Javonte Williams. Michael Carter is my second highest rookie running back, only behind, obviously, Najee Harris. Because, again, the passing upside's there, and I don't think the competition there is anything for him. He's going to be the superior back there. They're going to have to throw. That's going to play right into his hand in the PPR situation.
It's going to be volume for him. That's going to be his only to Najee. Najee's getting 300 touches.
Right.
Obviously, we're not getting that here.
But then there's Carter. Carter's getting the second most touches of the rookies. I'm telling you right now, he's going to get the second most touches of all of the rookie running backs. Yeah, I do see it. I mean, I like Javonte too, but he's not going to be in – Gordon is going to be in the way a little bit more than Tevin Coleman is.
So what about this receiver room? I think the big names are going to be Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore, and Denzel Mims, right? Maybe no clear number one on teams, but a lot to be excited about.
I've got Davis as the one. Davis at 103 targets, 70 catches, 989 and 6. Now, I want to be real. I did these projections, and now it's looking like there's a real possibility, according to what I'm seeing, that Denzel Mims doesn't make the team. So I'm concerned because I saw him taking that wide receiver 2 role, and I know that a lot of what we see right now is just BS, coach speak, horse stuff. Could just be to try to motivate him. Honestly, I don't know. what's going on here. So my projections seem a little out of whack based off of that because I did have Mims as wide receiver 2, and right now it does not seem like that's the case. It seems like Elijah Moore's the real deal too. So I think that rather than Crowder being the wide receiver 2, I think it's going to be Elijah Moore who takes the step up opposite Corey Davis or maybe in the slot. But they do have Crowder who's so effective there. So I see maybe Moore lining up on the other side of the field because he can do it all. I think there are – so, again, I'm not avoiding Mims, but I am really nervous about acquiring him now because I'm not sure he's going to make the team. If he does not, Crowder and Moore instantly get boosted up into guys that I want in my benches as depth players, with Moore having some kind of starter upside based on what this offense looks like. But they're going to have to throw, man. I mean, I think we can both admit they're going to have to throw. And so these receivers are going to get the targets you want to see for your depth pieces in your receiving room.
So I definitely get questions about him maybe not being a starter, right? But him not making the team, I think, is just a load of shit, right? Just,
yeah, I don't get it either.
I get the
so
questions,
talented.
right? So looking at the offense, most teams, you're going to carry at least 5 receivers, probably more of 6 or 7, depending on your offense, right?
Right.
If it's 5, what out of the guys that are there are going to stay over him? Braxton Berrios, Josh Malone.
Keelan Cole. Okay, I guess Keelan Cole before.
The 5 I see is Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Keelan Cole, Elijah Moore, and then Denzel Mims would be 5. Because after that, it's Berrios, Josh Malone, Jeff Smith, Vincent Smith, Lawrence Cager.
Do they still have Josh Dawson?
Mansa Bailey. They do not. They do not.
I remember he was there for a while. I like that guy coming out.
Else. Yeah, I just don't see anybody else that really stays above him. It doesn't make sense for him to not make the team. And when I look into the information a little bit deeper, right? Number one, he got food poisoning and lost about 20 pounds, and it caused him to miss quite a bit of training camp. Unfortunate things happen. It's life, right? Mm-hmm. Robert Saleh came out. This is actually just today, yesterday. And Mims was running with the ones. He said all the receivers are in rotation. They're all in the same boat. He said there are 3 guys on that team that unconditionally roll with the ones, and that's Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, and I don't know that I agree with this one, but Keelan Cole. Personally, I'd be putting Elijah Moore in there with the ones because everything I've heard out of him is fantastic. He can play anywhere on the field. He loves playing in the slot, loves playing outside. I wouldn't, to me, it doesn't make sense not to play him anywhere you can. So Personally, I think Mims is a guy I'm okay with obtaining because of the very low cost right now and storing him on my bench with the bet that he's going to come back and have a little bit of a breakout. I don't think Keelan Cole holds that position as the number 3 guy. And I think that we could even see, Jamison Crowder. Don't get me wrong, I like him, but I think that as the season progresses, we could see some wear on him. He's not, he's not incredible. He's not my favorite receiver on the group. So I think Elijah Moore and Denzel Mims, depending on how they do, could definitely take over from a 28-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in this receiving room.
There is.
Finding it.
And like we said, it's probably a team that's going to play from behind a bit and is going to have to pass. So they're going to get the ball. You're going to see volume. What do you think of this tight end group? Christopher Herndon, Ryan Griffin, Tyler Kroft, Kenny Yeboah. I did like coming out of college. Obviously, probably not a starter this year, but maybe somebody you keep on your taxi squad, for years to come. But
yeah, so when I look at this tight end room, I'm not super inspired. Apparently, Kroft has been playing the best, and I wasn't even projecting much for him. So I have Herndon as winning the job, 50 targets, 38 catches, 386 and 4. So you're looking at a guy that really could be your backup tight end. He has that kind of potential. I do think his ceiling is a bit higher than most of the guys at that range, just because we have seen flashes from him, but I don't know how it's going to happen here with what we just kind of discussed was a semi-crowded receiving room. I don't see the target volume being there for any of the tight ends in this unit. They probably go more 4 or 5 receiver sets, 4 with Carter or 5. None of the tight end guys, to me, are more impressive than the 5 receivers that we were just discussing. So I don't think the volume is going to be there and justifiable enough for me to go much more than getting Herndon as my tight end 2/3, depending on the format. That's really where I'm snagging him. Nobody else really intrigues me. But Kroft is somebody that I do have my eye on. If he ends up winning that job outright, I will try to get some exposure to him.
Yeah, even just a little bit, it doesn't hurt. a starter in this offense catching the ball is not going to be a bad option to have as depth.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure,
that's going to
for
bring
sure.
us. That's going to bring us to the NFC East, right? Crap division last year. Nothing really exciting out of it on the football field. Fantasy, there was still some excitement, but starting with a team that, again, a crowded receiver room, right? The Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if you've seen Hard Knocks yet. Episode 1 out. I think it was yesterday. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the clips of Zeke trying to field punts, and it was very, very ugly. Probably not his brightest moment. But Dak Prescott coming back, Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, obviously in the backfield. Beyond that, it's kind of crap. Tight end, kind of weird. Blake Jarwin coming back with Dalton Schultz. Jeremy Sprinkle is there. And then the receiver room is where it gets a little crowded, at least for the first couple. It's Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. After that, some question marks, right? It's a weird situation where all the top guys are very good, but behind it is 50 feet and then 50 feet of crap, and then they're backups pretty much. I don't know if you have a different opinion of that, but to me, that's what this looks like.
Well, I think one guy has upside. We'll discuss him a little bit. But you want to start off at QB, man, because Dak's back, and Dak is a very viable fantasy player, regardless of what he is otherwise. So I have him going 421 for 611. He has been relatively healthy, to be fair. Last year was really the first serious injury he suffered.
It was an anomaly. It was.
It really kind of is. I think this guy's been pretty reliable health-wise, and I am getting exposure. 421 for 611 for 5,097 yards passing, 38 through the air with 9 TDs. Plus, we had 58, 297, and 6 on the ground. Just because they are effective at running the ball with the running backs they have, it kind of limits Dak slightly. And I don't see them trying to push him running the ball too much coming off of that injury. That being said, those numbers right there are good enough for my QB5. So, yeah, Dak, I'm getting some of. On the ground, everybody's talking about Tony Pollard and numbers and how he's looked in training camp. Nah, man, again, this coach speak stuff can get you. If Pinto was here, he'd be smashing the table and drinking a cold Bud Light, talking about Ezekiel Elliott is still the guy here. He's right. I got him for 295 carries for 1245 and 11 touchdowns, plus 73 targets, 55 catches, 434, and another 3 through the air. That would put Zeke right now at my running back 9. The thing about Zeke is he has that running back 1 upside that we know he possesses. Not every single running back can honestly say, I could be running back 1. Zeke could easily be running back 1. I also still like Pollard. Not that I like him early, but I like him late. And if Zeke goes down, goodness gracious almighty, he's going to be a valuable asset. I got him with Zeke playing 103, 456, 3 touchdowns, plus a 41 targets, 29 catches, 215 and 2. This is still a guy that you can slot in your flex play. And again, I do not need to reiterate enough. If Zeke does go down, Tony Pollard instantly has RB1 upside immediately upon Zeke missing time. The other guys are young and unproven in the backfield. Don't touch them. There is talent here. There's actually 2 of my favorite rookie running backs that came here unsigned, Brendan Knox and Jaquan Hardy. We'll see if either one of those guys even make the team, but these guys are talented backs.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a solid team, right? I'm not going to down that. Dak Prescott obviously is a good quarterback. He's shown that. I'm going to read Billy and Chris's analysis on the Cowboys really quick here. Billy Witt, BWitt24, I think it is, right? BWitt24, said CeeDee, like top 8 to me, personal favorite for him, with Rashad Higgins, or excuse me, not Rashad Higgins, T. Higgins right behind him. Chris Pinto said, quote, Zeke going to catch up 110 million balls, none for CeeDee or Lamb. I don't know if that's quite valid analysis there, but I get the point, right? Zeke is good. I won't deny it. He's gotten worse and worse and worse year after year. I know I've said it time and time again. He's still good. I don't know that he's necessarily running back 1. He's an RB1. Yes, he's that top 12, I think, but he's the lower end of it. I think he's kind of that 8 to 12.
Am I still live?
And could even you're still there. Yeah. Little
I'm gonna
lag,
assume
but
they're still live. Looks like I'm still live. Tom, you still there?
oh, I'm still here.
But I'm out. Okay, there we are. I don't know what was going on your side, but mine looked kind of bad.
Little
Did
laggy.
you
You're
have some
good though.
buffering? Okay,
Little
good.
buffering. But
Okay, so we
Ezekiel Elliott, though, like I said, he's still good. He's an RB1, yes, but I think lower end. I don't see him being the actual running back one for the season. I think he's kind of that 8 to 12 range. Could even fall just into the top end of the RB2, depending on how the season falls. If he misses a couple games, or if Tony Pollard gets a few shares here and there, he could fall to that 13, 14 range even. His yards per attempt have gone down year after year, going from 5.1 his rookie year down to about 4.5 in 2019. Obviously, last year missing a little bit of the year, but Dak missing a lot of the year, so it did impact it. But down to 4 yards per attempt last year. Tony Pollard, 5.3 yards per attempt in 2019, 4.3 last year. So again, showing where Dak missing was a big impact to that running game because they weren't worried about passing. But it still doesn't bode well for me. He also has a lot of volume on him over his entire life. He has a lot of miles. So I don't know what the cliff is, but I don't know when Zeke falls off of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will move Zeke in Dynasty, but in redraft, I just see the volume there once again. Even if he's not as effective as he was, he still gets the volume necessary for me to be comfortable investing and picking him. And I do still see the potential for that RB1 upside if he just gets a crazy amount of looks. But we're moving to the receivers, and which is why I don't think he will get the looks necessary for RB1 status. Because, boy, this is a really, really talented receiving group. Arguably the best trio in the league. I still think Cooper is the guy there, like the one. I have him for 133 targets, 94 catches, 1238 and 10. That's a heck of a season. I have CD with just 4 less targets at 129, 87 catches, 1138 and 8. So you're looking at 2 real viable receiver type 1 scenarios. Then a guy I still really like, Michael Gallup, 116 for 68, 996 and 6. So this is, again, another guy that can be a flex depth position. None of these receivers are non-viable. I can have every one of them. CD usually goes a tiny bit too early for me. Guys like Billy really love him. I just like a couple other guys there. Again, I'll take Cooper over him. So I do have a little more shares of Cooper and Gallup than I do CD, but I do try to get all of these guys. The guy outside of those guys that I like, if any one of them goes down, is Simi Fehoko, the rookie out of Stanford. Apparently he's getting some hype, but I just watched some of his college film, and the guy he's a playmaker to me. He's got a big body. I don't see him as a wide receiver 1 type in this league, but could he be a wide receiver 3 in this offense with 2 of those guys in front of him? Absolutely. I think it becomes viable. And then moving to the tight end, this one is difficult. I agree with you, Tom, because Jarwin's back. I think he will wind up winning that job because Schultz looked okay in reserve. He was functional as a tight end. He was a viable tight end, yes. But I don't think he offers the same kind of upside that Jarwin does. That being said, Schultz is going to eat into Jarwin's upside as well. I got him at 59 targets, 45 for 554 and 4. Then I got Schultz for 41 targets, 30 catches, 297 and 3. So as you can see, again, guys that if you're punting tight end, these are great depth options for your backup bye week guys. But Jarwin has an argument being there, but there's a lot of other tight ends I like better as my starting tight end. These are more depth options.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do want to point out here is I think this is a team that, similar to last year, is going to be passing a lot, right? They don't have much of a choice because this defense, well improved. Obviously, you brought in, Micah Parsons. Those linebackers are scary with Parsons, Smith, Van Der Esch. The Van Der Esch will probably miss a few games. Also added Keanu Neal and Jabril Cox. Some solid players there. And the defensive line not bad as well. Their D tackle not what it was before. The big question is the secondary. You're talking about Anthony Brown, Trevon Diggs, and Jordan Lewis as your top 3 corners. Donovan Wilson is your starting strong safety. At least on the depth charts. I don't know if they move Neal back into a safety position. I think you could. And then DeMonte KZ is your starting free safety. I don't think that's the best group, right? I think that they could get torched in the passing game and therefore have to keep up with the passing game. So I think that's where you will see Dak's numbers probably stay pretty high because he's going to be playing from behind or trying to keep up. And the receivers are going to be right there with it. Good news for Zeke is he can catch the ball. So it doesn't completely eliminate him, in a fantasy perspective.
Nope.
Well, that brings us to a team that has the fastest quarterback in the league. And no, that's not Lamar Jackson. He's a running back, not a quarterback. And he's also not faster than this guy. It's Daniel Jones and the New York Giants, right? New York Football Giants, I should say. So obviously Saquon Barkley back this year. Saquon is Kobe comeback season. Not a lot behind him. We'll get into them. Tight end Evan Ingram, a guy that perennially we've wanted to blow up and hasn't. Kyle Rudolph there on the PUP. And then the receiver room, kind of an interesting one. I like it. I don't, it's not the best, not the worst, but I think it's got a lot of upside. Darius Slayton, Kenny Galladay, John Ross, Dante Pettis, Sterling Shepard, and Kadarius Toney. Definitely a lot of upside in it. Some question marks with it, though. So starting with Daniel Jones, the fastest quarterback in the NFL, and Saquon and the rest of these running backs. What are you thinking here?
Got Jones playing 16 games, so just missing one. 376 for 564, 4296, 34 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Then 63 for 394 and 3 on the ground. I have him for 9 fumbles, which, if you know Daniel Jones, seems about accurate, but not too terrible considering where he's been in his career. Nothing else here. Nothing to see here in the backup quarterback room. This is no doubt Daniel Jones. It's going to be as much Daniel Jones as they can get. You're going to see, as you can see from my projections, that's a pretty solid year for Jones. This is the guy who we want, though. Saquon Barkley. My RB1, Pinto, also's RB1 for the year. I have him for 301 carries, 1,589 yards, and 15 touchdowns on the ground with 88 targets, 66 catches for 583 and 5 on the through the air. That's an even 20 touchdowns. 402.2 PPR points from that season right there. If Saquon stays healthy, I think that's easily done. I think that I may have underprojected him. This offense, and we'll talk more about it later, has so many more weapons. It's going to be so much more difficult to deal with this year. Saquon is going to have some running lanes open up. And the passing game, like I said, 88 targets, 66 catches. It's a heck of a good year for a running back. Good enough from my projections for RB1.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I got nothing but good things to say about Saquon. I have him up in that kind of top 5 range, probably top 3 at least. What I'm more interested in is behind him, right? Devontae Booker, Elijah Penny, Gary Brightwell, Corey Clement, Alfred Morris is back there. Not a lot to like with him, but the question I think is going to be who's the RB2, right? RB2
Booker.
And even possibly 3. You think it's Booker. I think that you could see a little bit of either Corey Clement or Gary Brightwell if Saquon, knock on wood, were to go down. I like a lot of Gary Brightwell. Corey Clement's a guy, though, that obviously I saw a lot of him in Philly. There was a lot to like. He's maybe not the most physically gifted, but a guy that does play hard. He's going to go out there and move the ball, whether anybody wants him to or not on the defense. So not a guy that I hate, and I would keep an eye on if somebody did go down ahead of him. Though I know Booker is probably the likely guy as the RB2. So people I am kind of keeping an eye on, though. And Daniel Jones, I will say, not a guy I'm super into for Dynasty. I don't know that the Giants keep him long term. So, if they didn't keep him, where does he end up? Is he a backup somewhere? Does he find another job? I'm not sure. I don't know that that's their option long term, though. So do have some concerns there. But with that being said, these receivers, like we were talking about, do have a lot to like. Obviously bringing in Kenny Galladay, John Ross is there, rookie Kadarius Toney, a speedster. He's agile, does everything you like. Dante Pettis, Sterling Shepard. It's a good list of guys that are pretty talented. I think the assumption is probably that Kenny Galladay and Darius Slayton are your 1-2 punch, and then it's probably either Shepard or Toney, I'd think, is your number 3, right?
Yeah, so I mean, receiver, obviously it's Kenny G, baby, playing that sweet jazz, but it's the other guys that are interesting, and there are three that I'm really interested in: Slayton, Tony, and Shepard. My projections have Slayton edging them as the wide receiver two, but not by a significant margin. What I'm looking at here is actually Tony out targeting Slayton, but Slayton seeing the end zone more to kind of make up that difference, having a higher yards per catch. Slayton at 79, 46 catches, 639 and 6. Got Tony 81, 54 catches for 623 and 5. So he had more catches, slightly less yards, slightly less touchdowns. Shepard also I see viable, especially if anybody goes down. The rest of the guys, Ross and Pettis, I just don't see the volume being there, especially when you include the tight end room. But it's Kenny Golladay at 119 for 74, 11, 19, and 9. He's a touchdown guy. He's going to get those touchdowns. So that's who I'm looking at in this receiving room. Moving to tight end, Evan Ingram should have a excellent year this year, just based on the talent around him. He's never seen anything like this. He finally stayed healthy. That was really what I wanted to see. Now we know the talent he has. I have him for 99 targets, second on the team, 62 catches for 669 and 5. Rudolph isn't really an option unless Ingram goes down, and even then a very touchdown-dependent one. So more so it's Ingram. Nobody else in this tight end room. I love Caden Smith, but I just didn't – he doesn't see the volume, and with Rudolph there, he's not going to see the volume to be a viable fantasy option. I still like keeping him in dynasty leagues, though, if you have that kind of depth.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't disagree on the receiving end. I think that you see Slayton, Golladay, Tony be the top ones, with Shepard is the pretty clear four. I will say somebody that does pique my interest is John Ross, right? And it's not that I necessarily want him, but I might keep an eye on him just because of the blazing speed he has. Probably doesn't play a lot of games, but every once in a while he might hit you with that Deshaun Jackson game, one or two big catches for 50-plus yards because he has the speed to do it. He's probably going to tear an ACL or a hamstring while doing it, but he has the ability. The tight end room, Evan Ingram, I want to love him, right? And the big question is, can he actually produce? We've been waiting and waiting and waiting to see it. When I look at his stats from last year, 654 receiving yards, only one touchdown. Obviously not the best red zone threat in the world. He's more of a kind of a midfield type of guy. But I will say that's not far off from tight end one production. Another one or two touchdowns would probably put him into that top 12 pretty solidly. So somebody with a pretty solid upside. And moving on here, unless you have anything else for the Giants, Ryan. Oh, you pulled a Pinto.
Wow, dang it, Pinto. Goes to Pinto. I have Ingram as tight end 12. So tight end 12, as you were saying, that's where I've got him at. So that makes a lot of sense to me. He's right there.
Yeah, I think he lands in that 10 to 14 range. He's a borderline tight end one. And I think that you can get him low enough that it's very worthwhile to do so. But moving it on here to my team without a quarterback, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's what I will say is every report out of training camp is terrible for this offense. I haven't really heard a lot of positives other than Jordan Mailata is incredible at left tackle. And by the way, is probably the best Australian country singer since Keith Urban. Don't know if you saw the video, but he's incredible.
No, I have not.
You got to check it out. Singing a little Tennessee whiskey, right? But with that being said, Jalen Hurts, the presumable starter, though, I think Nick Mullins is a better quarterback, and that's an unpopular opinion. I know it is. Obviously, Joe Flacco back there as well. None of them are very good. The running backs, Miles Sanders, pretty evident he'll be the starter. Behind him is a bigger question is who's going to be the 2, the 3, and the 4. Jordan Howard is back. Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, Kerryon Johnson brought in from Detroit. And then Jason Huntley and Elijah Holyfield kind of lingering back there on the depth charts. Receiver Devontae Smith already brought in, already has a leg injury. I think the big question is can he stay healthy? We'll see what happens with that. Jalen Reagor apparently looking a bit better than last year. Greg Ward Jr., Travis Fulgham showing some upside. And apparently the biggest surprise out of training camp has been Quez Watkins. mossing people. He shows serious speed getting downfield. And then moving to the tight end room, obviously Zach Ertz still there, along with Dallas Goedert. So be interesting to see how that breaks down. But what are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts? I know we don't have the other guys here to talk well about him. I'll put a quick disclaimer out for everyone. Neither of us are big Jalen Hurts guys. We'll talk about why, I think, a little bit and give some reasoning. But, Ryan, what are you thinking here for Jalen Hurts?
Well, all you need to know is that Jalen Hurts was basically Tim Tebow last year. And how did you feel about Tim Tebow being a starting quarterback? I don't know why you wouldn't feel the same here. It was not pretty completion percentage-wise. He was, like you said, and we joke about Lamar, he was a running back that was in the quarterback's position last year. He was not accurate. I have him going 323 for 529, 37-52, 23 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions. I do see him kind of getting some stuff going, but this is not the quarterback of the future, in my opinion. He does offer this upside at rushing with 122 for 659 and 6 rushing touchdowns. That's good enough to put Hurts in as my QB 15. So there is some value there for me just based off the rushing. But I want nothing to do with this because I don't know if he's going to stay healthy. I don't know what this offense is going to look like. And it really scares me off a lot of the guys that I really want to like as we move into the running back room. Miles Sanders, a guy I want to like. But it's hard knowing. I have him at 231 for 1098 and 9 touchdowns, plus 69 targets, 45 catches, 382 and 2 through the air. The guy that I think backs him up is the guy that we'll be talking about, a stud running back on the next team. This guy kept that guy playing receiver, Kenneth Gainwell. And I'm talking about Gibson and Gainwell. Gibson didn't play running back in college because Gainwell was the RB1 a year younger than him. He kept Gibson at wide receiver. Now, I know you guys don't know yet how much I like Gibson, but you're going to find out next team. It's Gainwell. If anything happens to Miles Sanders, Gainwell will step in and probably take that job. Sanders is playing for his job this year because Gainwell is by far the most talented running back that's been on the roster with him since he's been in the league. And there is an argument here, in my opinion, that he is the most talented running back on the roster. And if Miles Sanders slips up in any capacity, Kenneth Gainwell is going to take that job. Now, I don't see Sanders. I love Sanders' talent, and I do think he's still slightly better than Gainwell, mostly because of experience. But Gainwell's the guy for the handcuffing that I want to get behind Miles Sanders. The rest of the guys I don't think are viable because I think Gainwell just smashes them in the offseason. And why would you put him on the field?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of potential for Gainwell, right? I liked what I saw from him in college. I do think that Boston Scott does still have some opportunity there. They've seen what he can do for the last couple of years here in Philly. He has a very solid ability to catch the football out of the backfield. And it's, for a team that's probably going to be down a bit, I don't think they're going to be leading games. You're going to be throwing. You're going to want the guy that catches the ball consistently, and that's what he does. Miles Sanders, I love him, has had difficulty consistently catching the ball, right? He's missed catches in moments that matter. So I think he has upside, but it's hurt a little bit by the fact that they probably will not lead many games. You're not going to burn clock with him. Jalen Hurts, a 52% completion percentage, doesn't bode well for him. But likely that does come up. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see him breaking 60% by any means. I think that defenses are really going to see how to beat him through the air. And then I think that that's also going to limit him on the ground because as soon as they figure out how to limit this passing offense, you're able to also contain him because he's not a Lamar-esque runner. Lamar is a fantastic player running the football. Jalen Hurts is good, but he's not the most agile. He's not the fastest. He doesn't have anything that he's the best at. I don't think he's there long term. I think Nick Mullins is a better option for this offense because he has shown some ability to throw the football. Maybe not the best quarterback in the league, but he would be a pretty decent, stopgap for the season where you take those next 3 first-round picks you have next year and bring a new quarterback in. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm looking at the receivers right now, and, this isn't the worst receiving unit. The last year's was way worse. You got Rager, Smith. I got Smith leading the team in targets, but that's almost a joke in a way for my projections because I don't think he makes the whole season. I really don't. So Rager is the guy for me in this offense. I got him at 105.62 for 801 and then another 7 touchdowns. This was the guy I really liked coming in last year. That was a dysfunctional mess last year. I'm not letting that affect me on how I feel about Jalen Reagor. And I'm not letting Devontae Smith trick me into those chicken legs being on my team. He's too skinny. He's just too skinny, and it freaks me out. And like you said, he already has a leg injury. This was what we were worried about. It's making me feel like a genius for not drafting him. It scares me. Moving on, the rest of the guys, I see it too spread out for them to ever be any real option unless Ertz does leave. Then that will open up some targets for some of these tertiary options at receiver. I do think Fulgham is the guy that takes over for Smith when he inevitably goes down, but I'm not sure that he's going to be getting enough volume to be viable. It's only Reagor for me from this receiving room. And then you move to the tight ends. I have them both catching 54 balls, both catching 4 touchdowns. I have Ertz at 576, and I have Goddard at 587. So these are two guys that, yeah, you want them in the tight end room. This is a similar situation to what we looked at earlier in New England. Ertz and Goddard are both top tight ends if they're on their own team. And together, that doesn't necessarily hurt them, but it does cap their upside. But, yeah, these are two. And if Ertz goes somewhere, I'm still keeping my eye on him, but Goddard definitely moves up if it's just him here. Otherwise, again, I like them both, but they cap each other's upside.
Agreed. And at the end of the day, there is going to be volume for somebody here, right? Somebody's going to get the ball. This isn't going to be an offense that only, there's 100 touches to go around. It is still an NFL team. But I will say Devontae Smith, I'll put it this way. There was rumors out that they were going to trade Smith and 2 firsts for Deshaun Watson, and I wasn't upset with it because I don't have faith in him staying on the field because I saw Deshaun Jackson. I saw that era. And don't get me wrong. I loved Deshaun Jackson, but I also hated him because he couldn't stay on the field, and I think that's the same thing you're going to get from Jalen Reagor.
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith. Yep. Devontae Smith, I don't think will be able to stay on the field. Jalen Reagor, I think he'll be okay. Had some issues with conditioning coming into the season. He failed a conditioning test, but apparently he's bounced back from that. So positive to hear. Greg Ward Jr., I don't think is going anywhere for the time being. He's a good option to have out there because he's been a steady, you can give him the ball and he's going to catch it. That's been pretty consistent year in and year out for the last 2-3 years. And then with Travis Fulgham, I love his upside, but Quez Watkins, I think, might be, at least early in the season, getting the additional shares as the number 4, just based on what we're seeing in training camp and depending on what we see starting tomorrow, actually, with their first preseason game. We'll see if Quez Watkins can be that 4 guy ahead of Travis Fulgham or not. Obviously, size is a big advantage for Fulgham. He's, I believe, 6'2", 6'3". A little bit of extra height never hurts. So we'll see what happens there. Ertz and Goddard, I think you're absolutely right. They cap each other, but not a terrible thing. I think that those two are going to be your leading receivers if you have both of them and if Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback. Apparently he's favored them in training camp, so wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens in game. Those big targets are a lot more beneficial for a quarterback like him that maybe doesn't have the best accuracy. So don't get me wrong. I'm a Philly fan. I hope that they do well. I don't have high expectations for this year. A few of the guys I'd be interested in Dynasty, like Goddard, not Smith because of the injury concerns, but Reagor, even Fulgham, and Miles Sanders I would still hold on to in Dynasty unless you have somebody that's willing to pay for him. Gainwell as well. But it's beyond that, I have question marks. I don't know the long-term viability. I don't think redraft is worth it for nearly anybody on this team, to be honest, unless it's later rounds and you're able to kind of get them below their ADP. I think all of them are kind of going a little high for their true value.
Yeah. Well, this is an exciting division this year, man. Outside Philly, it is a much more exciting division. And Philly could, if Ertz does make big improvements, you're looking at one of the most exciting divisions in football.
Absolutely. But I knew Hurts, if Hurts does make strides, it could be an interesting team, right? The defense does look better than last year for the Eagles, which is beneficial. And the last team we're talking about here is another situation where the quarterback is kind of a weird one, right? The WFT Washington football team. Curious to see what they'll be named after this year because they're apparently renaming.
Let's go WTF.
All right. Yeah, WTF. I love it. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the starter Taylor Heineke got a pretty sizable contract after last season. Kyle Allen's still in that quarterback room as well. The running backs, I know we're going to get into them. I know you're a big fan. I like him as well. Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick, Peyton Barber back there as well. And then receivers, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, Curtis Samuel brought in from Carolina, Adam Humphries out of Tennessee, Cam Sims and Steven Sims Jr. from last year, Diami Brown brought in as a rookie, Antonio Gandy-Golden, Isaiah Wright. It's a deep receiver room, probably one of the deeper ones I've seen out of anybody. I kind of like it a lot, to be honest. And then tight end, something I'm personally not as excited about. I can't remember how you feel about him, Logan Thomas. We'll get into it. You like him? I have mixed feelings.
Good.
So starting with quarterback, obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzmagic. The highest what's the test? He got a 48, 49 on it, right? On the Wonderlic, right?
Yeah, I think he got a 50.
Did he get a fit? I knew he was at least a 48.
I don't remember. It was preposterous. It
was right up there, yeah.
So I'm projecting Fitzmagic in 15 games to be 386 for 559, 4,084, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, with 49 for 221 and 2 on the ground. This is a fantasy viable QB2/super flex. I have him at 15 because he does try to do a little too much, and at his age, he can throw his body on the line, and I expect that it could cause him to miss a few games. And I got Heineke in there behind him, but nothing is impressive for me there. What's impressive for me is this running back, Antonio Gibson. I got him at 263 for 1242 and 13 on the ground, 54, 42, and 303 for 3 touchdowns through the air. That would be good enough in my running back rankings. If my mouse would show up. Where did it go? There it is. My running back rankings for running back 11. This is an RB1 territory with this guy. He showed what he can do last year. He's a big body. People think he was a receiver. He's humongous. He's 235, 6'3". This is a massive running back, a massive human being that's got blazing speed. He's got all the tools you look for in a running back, plus the pass-catching chops that you want to see. If it wasn't for the fact that J.D. McKissick was on his team, he would be higher up my rankings. I don't see McKissick making a huge impact on the ground, 84 carries, 363 and 2. But if he has 87 targets and 66 catches like I'm projecting for 479 and 3, that makes him a PPR machine that you're looking for again. McKissick was super viable last year. If you had him and you were starting him, you were getting seriously good points in flex positions or even RB2 positions just because he had so many catches. I do see Gibson diving into that a bit more this year, but McKissick remains viable because of his pass-catching ability. Also, it's just Gibson can't play every single down. You don't want to do that with a guy of his caliber. You want to keep him fresh. That's going to give McKissick enough volume again to remain viable on the ground and through the air.
To me, this running backfield reminds me a bit of UNC over the last 2 years with Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, obviously much bigger backs than either of those guys. But the ability to catch passes out of the backfield and run the ball for 2 guys, I think I think Gibson is the clear one for them, but really it's a 1-2 punch, right? So definitely something to keep your eye on. Fitzpatrick, I will say, don't get me wrong, we've seen great things from him. I'm curious if they don't give Heineke a shot. If he shows up in preseason, I mean, he showed out at the end of last year. Obviously, that's why he got a pretty solid contract coming out of last season, and they wanted to keep him. And even Kyle Allen, it's a guy that Ron Rivera knows from Carolina.
Yep.
I don't know that it's a clear-cut job for Ryan Fitzpatrick going into this season.
Oh, man, Fitzmagic is magic. I'm all about it.
I agree. But I just want to say it's not clear-cut. I think there is a crack in the door for one of these guys to make an opportunity out of the preseason and try and get at least a game or two or some amount of time to steal that job away. But the good news for them is that this receiving room is deep, right? So even if we don't see Scary Terry much or Curtis Samuel or Adam Humphrey in the preseason, there's a lot of guys left.
Yeah, obviously we got McLaurin, who's the class of this receiving room. 146 targets, 97 for 1299 and 9. Then I got Samuel as number 2 with 101 for 64, 736 and 5. Then here's where it gets kind of interesting, kind of salty. Who's going to be the guy that takes the number 3 slot? And right now, I just can't get over it. I like the rookie Diami Brown. I think he was such a dynamic playmaker, and if he can slot in at the 3 behind these other 2 dynamic playmakers, good luck trying to figure this offense out. I got him 65 targets, 40 catches, 568 and 4. Then you got Antonio Gandy Golden, Humphreys for the veteran presence, and that's what he can do. He's not special, but he can give you quality reps. And then the Sims brothers, per se, I think they're going to get kind of pushed out here. But I would prefer Cam over Steven at the moment. But really, to me, it's McLaurin's the gem. Samuel, with his versatility, is still going to be viable. And then De'Ami Brown is the value play in redraft. And I'm really trying to snatch him up in Dynasty because I think he's so versatile that if these 3 guys remain here, one of them is going to go. And if De'Ami Brown goes, I think he has potential to be borderline wide receiver 1 somewhere else, just based off what I saw from him in college. And I'm really excited to see what this offense looks like with these kind of guys. Again, they're all pretty fast and quick. They're going to have a tough time matching up. And then you got Logan Thomas. So I heard you say you're not huge on. The thing about it is he's such a big body, and he played quarterback for so long. It's amazing. He's still kind of young to the position. I got him second on the team in targets at 115 for 74 catches, 696, and 6 touchdowns. Now, that would put Logan Thomas as my tight end 8. Again, that's a place I like to be. I think he goes pretty late, so I'm into it. There isn't another tight end I'm interested in any capacity on the roster for any reason. If Logan Thomas goes down, I don't care who his backup is. It's going to go to some of this depth at receiver, like you said. They're probably just going to have a blocking tight end in for when they need it.
Yeah, as far as the tight ends go, there's not much behind him. John Bates, Tamarick Hemingway. Not exciting. Ricky Seals-Jones is probably the only one that has any interest to me, just because there was some upside 3 years ago. Yeah. We're 5 years into his career, and it should have been 3 years ago that he blew up. But no, these receivers, I think you're right. It's McLaurin, Curtis. I don't think anybody would question that. I do think you might see a little bit of a split, right? De'Ami Brown, another North Carolina guy. I think likely will be the main 3, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Adam Humphreys running a bit out of the slot. And then the Sims brothers kind of backing that up. I think this is a team that probably runs 7 receivers on the roster, to be honest. I think you get both Sims brothers. I think you get Gandy Golden. I think they'd rather run deep there and probably shallow at tight end, if I had to guess, or shallow at running back, because some of these guys have such flexibility. Like we said, both of these running backs are previous receivers, so hey, they could line up out there too if you really needed them to. But it definitely a fun offense to watch, and I think Terry McLaurin's going to have a solid season with all these other guys around him. I think we talked about Dallas has the best trio. I think as far as total depth, the 6 guys or so that you're going to have on a roster come week 1, this might be probably the deepest receiver room. I think it's definitely up there.
It's a deep receiver room for sure.
Yeah. So
there's a lot to like here. This whole division is going to be vastly improved, even if Philly is not. The rest of the division is going to be better this year.
Absolutely, it's going to be a fun one to watch for both of these divisions, the AFC and NFC East. Hey, the Patriots aren't what they used to be, so the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bills are all in it now, and the Patriots are still competing. So it's not an open and shut case. And the NFC.
Well, the Bills
East
are going to take that division, but who's second? That's the real question I'm interested in. Miami, obviously.
But I'll tell you what, one injury could change everything for them.
Yeah, Miami's probably making the playoffs.
I think so.
That would be my guess.
But I'll tell you what, with the additional wild cards, the Jets or Patriots could also sneak in because they're that good of teams, I think. Depending on, and I'm not assuming that the Jets will. Obviously, a big difference for a rookie to take them that far. But,
yeah, it'll
be fun.
They're not trash divisions this year. They're not trash.
Exactly. So with that, though, that covers the AFC and NFC East. Once again, really quick, tell them about the St. Jude Bowl. What do they need to do to get signed up? What do they need to know about it? How great are we doing with it?
Yeah, it's so guys to sign up. You can hit any one of us up on Twitter, Real Ryan Hicks, FFR Tom. Sleeper is where I'm at most of the time communicating. Ryan Hicks 63 is my sleeper ID. It's just $20. And then again, last year we had 144 people. 1,200 went to St. Jude. 1,200 went to first place. The more people we get, the more prize money and money to St. Jude we can get. So tell everybody, sign up. It's really fun. Divisions are drafted. We already have 6 divisions drafted. And we got a bunch of divisions. If you want to wait to draft, you can. You can wait in one of the divisions that's waiting. If you want to do a fast draft, you can. You can get in one of the fast drafts that we have going on. We have one scheduled this weekend for 6 o'clock. And then we have slow drafts starting pretty much all the time as more people are ready to draft. You just tell us when you're ready to draft. We put you in the division that drafts next. It's really fun, guys. Again, it's fantasy football, St. Jude charity. What could be better? Join us. It's super fun. I can't wait to see you in there. Smack talking a little bit and telling us why you're going to win the whole thing.
Yeah, man, we're happy to. There you go. We're happy to have absolutely anybody. If you're new to fantasy, if you've been in fantasy for the last 30 years, it doesn't matter, right? It's a pretty broad spectrum of people in there. So happy to have anybody that wants to join and learn. If you have something you haven't tried before and you want to, this is the place to do it. We'll have any format of fantasy you can imagine. If there's one you enjoy that you haven't heard about from us, let us know. We'll make it. We'll create a new division for you guys in whatever format you'd like to have. So
for real.
But like we said, message any of us at Fantasy FR Live, at Real Ryan Hicks, at FFR Tom, our boys who are not here today, at Aggie Kappa Sig or at BWit24. Any of us can get you the information on the St. Jude Bowl and how to get in. But as always, thank you for tuning in to the Fantasy First Rounders Live every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern. We'll see you next week.
That's Oh, Tom left without going not live. Uh-oh, Tom, we're still live. If I leave, maybe we won't be live.